This next piece is called The Last Saturday of the Month.
I do the washing every Monday and Friday. On Mondays, I wash the dirty clothes from Friday, Saturday and Sunday, so I've got everything clean for the week ahead. On Fridays, I do the laundry from Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday, so I can start the weekend with an empty laundry basket. Sheets and towels I do once a fortnight. Tea towels and dishcloths go in with a dark wash once a week. I dry everything on the line outside if I can. It always smells fresher that way, and I feel I'm doing my bit for the environment, not using the tumble dryer. I do like the washing line to look neat. Socks hanging in pairs, shirts set out together, underwear in a separate section, and for the pegs to match each item, you know, white pegs for the sheets and so on. Now, I realise that this sounds a bit obsessive, so sometimes, after I've got the washing line organised, I mix things up a bit. Socks not matching, yellow or red pegs on the sheets, tea towels and handkerchiefs all jumbled up on the line together. But then it looks so untidy I can't cope. I have to swap them all back again. I suppose there's so many things we can't control in life that I like to put everything in order where I can. In fact, I've created what my mother suggested all those years ago when I first got married. Melanie, she said. She was the only one who called me by my full name. Everyone calls me Mel. Melanie, you have to have a domestic routine. At that time, I thought that was hilarious. You see, we were very young. Mike was 19. I was just 18 when we got married. It was right at the end of the 60s, the decade of, well, decadence and Vietnam War protests, Woodstock and free love. And having a routine for anything just didn't feature in our priorities. Besides, we weren't going to be slaves to household tasks like our parents. We had more important things to do in life. And so the early years of our marriage descended into arguments and chaos. I remember we once worked through every plate and bowl and cooking utensil in the house before we gave in and washed the dirty dishes. I think it was the sight of Mike eating his breakfast cereal out of a frying pan that did it. Reluctantly, we accepted that, well, the boring household stuff wasn't going to do itself. So we put in place a domestic routine, and I've been doing the washing twice a week, every Monday and Friday for 50-odd years ever since. When I think back to our wedding, it was quite the hippie occasion. We were both barefoot, dressed in clothes from charity shops. My bouquet was a bunch of wildflowers gathered that morning. All the crazy friends we had at the time were there, as well as the obligatory family members, looking scandalised at people openly smoking joints. At the ceremony held at the local registry office, we took the usual marriage vows, but we made two other promises that day. The first we made publicly at the reception. Well, it was just a few drinks really, held in a friend's garden. We announced we wouldn't be having any children, as we didn't want to contribute to the world's population problems. Our friends all cheered, but there was tut-tutting from some of the old relatives who thought a marriage with no intention of children wasn't a marriage at all. But in those days, honesty was the vibe, and we just thought it would be more honest to tell people up front than to let them wait in hope while the years passed and no children appeared. I did feel a moment's regret when I saw the expression on my mother's face. It turned out she had been so much looking forward to grandchildren. But I knew I was saving the planet. Not that it did any good. The planet seems in worse shape than ever now, doesn't it? Our second promise was the one we made to each other on our wedding night. We had a pretty humble honeymoon, just a few nights in a caravan at the coast. Humble, but still romantic and special to us. As I said, this was the era of free love. We didn't want an open marriage, but we did want to give each other some freedom. The compromise we came to, the private vow we made to each other was this. On the last Saturday of the month, we would each go out wherever and with whomever we chose. No questions asked, no recriminations. There was just one condition. Whatever each of us did that night should not hurt the other. And so, as teenagers, we embarked on life as husband and wife. And once we'd got through those first turbulent years, our marriage actually worked, while those of nearly all our friends broke down. I'm not saying last Saturday of the month pledge was what held the marriage together, but I think it helped. And we kept the Saturday evenings going. Not every month, of course. There were holidays and illnesses, and there was the time I had the miscarriage. Yes. You'll be wondering how that happened, given the no children vow. Well, Mother Nature has a habit of wrecking the best laid plans, the most careful of precautions. When I lost the baby, it was with a sense of relief we wouldn't be ridiculed or criticised for not keeping to our promise. But with a sense of sadness too, as those few months of pregnancy made me realise how much I wanted to be a mother. But going back to our Saturday nights of freedom, well, for me they were pretty innocent. I'd often meet up with girlfriends or take myself off to the cinema to catch up on a film I'd been meaning to see, or sometimes not even go out at all, but have a quiet evening at home. Although I'd always pretend I'd left the house, as it seemed to be one of the unspoken rules that the evening should actually be spent going out, not staying in. Early on in the marriage, I did meet up for a while with a guy, a friend of a friend. After a few casual dates, I suppose you could call them, we agreed to meet at a hotel. He booked a room there, and the understanding was, well, that we'd see what eventuated. I found I couldn't go ahead with it. Strangely, the fact that I could go ahead, no questions asked, seemed to make the whole thing unbearably sordid. I went to the hotel half an hour early and left a carefully worded letter for him at the front desk. And that was that. I never heard from him again. As for Mike, well, he must have had his secrets too. But we kept our word to each other and never asked. And so, when I found the note that day, just before Mike got ill last year, I knew I could never ask about it. It was a Monday, so I was doing the washing from Friday and the weekend. I did my usual check of the pockets. You know how annoying it is if tissues end up in the wash. And found a piece of paper in the pocket of the shirt Mike had worn on the Saturday night, the last Saturday of the month. Meet Dee at 7:30, it said. Not a full name, just the capital letter D. It seemed somehow so casual, so routine, so intimate. I couldn't help myself. I started to envisage her, aging now, well, aren't we all? But still elegant, glamorous, desirable. It was hard to push the idea away. I felt a spurt of jealousy. What do I do with the note? Leave it in his shirt pocket and have it disintegrate and ruin the rest of the wash? Definitely not. Throw it away. Perhaps it was a test to see if I'd do just that. Challenge Mike with it? But that wasn't in the spirit of the deal we reached all those years ago. I put it aside to think about while I did the washing. Once I brought in the laundry from the line, I simply put the note back where I'd found it. We each did our own ironing, so I knew Mike would find it there, intact. Which he must have done a few days later, when he tackled a pile of shirts while I was out shopping and he was watching cricket on Foxtel. Because that night, over dinner, he didn't discuss it with me. He didn't say anything at all. But he reached over and took my hand and gave me a long, meaningful look. A look that said, "I know that you know." And we left it at that. It was just a few weeks later that Mike started to become ill. I noticed it, in fact, on Saturday night, the last Saturday of the month, when I could see it was a real effort for him to get ready to go out. But I could also see that he didn't want to stay home and have me miss out on my evening of freedom. "Don't go out," I said. "I can see you're tired. I'm not going anywhere special. Let's just have a quiet evening at home." And so we did. We watched Mike's favourite film, Casablanca, for the umpteenth time. We curled up in front of the fire and had sardines on toast. And that, in fact, was the end of our last Saturdays of the month. It turned out that Mike had an aggressive cancer that ravaged his body in a few short months. We never had time to do all the things we'd meant to do, to say all the things we'd meant to say to each other. At least he was able to stay at home until he died, so that I could be with him, could care for him, could wash his clothes. At his funeral, through a haze of numbness and grief, I found I was looking for an attractive stranger, for Diana. There were certainly people there I didn't know. I suppose that's always the case at funerals. But I couldn't see an elegant woman sitting by herself. After Mike's death, my domestic routine imploded for a while. I just couldn't bring myself to plough through all those household tasks. They seemed so dreary and pointless. When I reached my last clean set of underwear, I knew I had to tackle the mounds of dirty washing. There were still some of Mike's clothes at the bottom of the laundry basket, the things he'd worn in those last sad days. They still had a faint scent of the cologne he always wore. It seemed a final service to him to wash them carefully, to hang them on the line, matching socks next to each other, blue pegs holding his blue shirts in place, and then to iron them. There were no notes in his shirt pockets this time. But I was putting the clothes away in his wardrobe, thinking how I'd need to sort all these things out and give them to Vinnie's. I found an envelope tucked amongst a drawer of neatly rolled socks, addressed to me, with a letter inside. "Darling Mel," it said, "I know you'll find this eventually, and that when you read it, I'll no longer be with you. And I know we agreed never to talk about our Saturday nights of freedom. But I wanted to explain about the note you found. I had to meet David that night, a young guy who was looking for some advice about his career. There was no other woman. There never has been. By giving me my freedom, you also gave me the freedom to use it, not to use it. You were the love of my life, my one and only love." Now that I've got the washing, up to date with the washing, I've gone back to the Monday and Friday washing routine. The washing line isn't so full these days with just my things. But I've kept a few shirts back from the piles of Mike's clothes I gave to Vinnie's. Sometimes I put them through the wash again and hang them on the line with colour coordinated pegs, of course. I like to see them there, next to my own shirts, hanging together in a companionable sort of way. I like to watch how the sleeves of our shirts, Mike's and mine, mingle gently in the breeze.